Good afternoon. My name is Daniel Howell, and on behalf of the Hemispheric Institute, I'd like to welcome everyone to Honoring the Black Femme in Ballroom, the third event of Agency and Process, an extraordinary event series that Camille Lawrence is curating for the Institute, and that we will be producing for the remainder of the calendar year. This series features Black memory workers, including archivists, historians, and artists, in conversation with one another, reflecting on their method in their capacities as practitioners and political actors. As I mentioned, the series has been organized by Camille Lawrence, whose work as an archivist focuses on the art history, innovations, and diversity of artistic expression across the African diaspora, especially through the lens of the oral, the physical, and the ritual. Lawrence's background as an art historian, artist, and beauty practitioner informs her approach to archival work. Her projects include Black beauty archives and contributions to urban bushwomen, Bam Dance Africa, and Black dance stories. The Hemi team met Camille Lawrence through the work that we do with our digital video archive, HIDVL, the Hemispheric Institute Digital Video Archive. So that's what HIDVL stands for. So I'm going to say a little bit about us. I gotta plug our archive, and a little bit about why we asked Camille to do this series. And here I'm dropping a link to HIDVL in the chat. The Hemispheric Institute Digital Video Library, HIDVL, is the first major digital video library of performance practices in the Americas. Created in 2005 in partnership with NYU Libraries and with the inaugural support of the Andrew W. Mellon Foundation, HIDVL began as an effort to preserve political performance works from the Americas, making these cultural documents available worldwide. Our growing repository guarantees historical preservation and free access at this point to thousands of hours of documentation. In the last several years, the Hemispheric Institute has recommitted itself to centering cultures of justice work, especially around the themes of Blackness, migration, indigeneities, and ecologies. Once again, with the generous support of the Mellon Foundation, who, I have to give a shout out to, this time they've been supporting us through the World Making and Social Emergency at the Hemispheric Institute initiative. So we got to know Camille within the context of this recommitment to social justice work. And we all instantly knew that she was something really special. It was because of her rigor, her originality, her humor. There's a reason, after all, that her project, Black Beauty Archives, was featured by Oprah. And also because of the World Black Archives that she's plugged into. And we realized how much we had to learn from her for our own archival work and how much other archivists we knew had been clamoring for precisely the kind of insights she was bestowing on us. We're especially excited about this event today, honoring the Black Femme in Ballroom. Noelle Deleon's presentation promises to elaborate the Agency Process series, which celebrates individuals shaping the future of memory work, creating outside of traditional archival models, and employing ethical methodologies to access and recover hidden Black histories in new directions, expanding the conversation to yet new communities. If ballroom culture is finally getting some fraction of what it is due in the dominant culture, it is more important now than ever to remember its history, that it is not something new, that it was forged by Black and brown gender dissidents who chose to live unapologetically for themselves. In a Pride Month that is so easily corporatized and whitewashed, we're thrilled to provide Noelle Deleon with a platform to discuss the history of communities who have always been at the vanguard of queerness, as a reminder that queer history has always been Black history. So with that, I turn the floor over to Camille Lawrence so that she can introduce Noelle Deleon. So Camille.
Thank you so much, Daniel. Thank you to everyone at the Hemispheric Institute and the Andrew Mellon Foundation for funding this really great initiative. Today, I'm so excited and honored to introduce Noelle Deleon, who's someone, their work I've been following for a while on Instagram and Twitter, especially if you're on Twitter, you know Noelle Archives, and you know that's where so much of us have been learning so much more about ballroom history. So I'm so honored and grateful that Noelle is here to join us today. And just to give you some background about Noelle Deleon, she, her, archivist, artist, and founder of the Femme Queen Archives. Noelle is a Texas-based interdisciplinary artist, archivist, writer, and dancer committed to the progression and history of Black radical art and expression. She is a member of the exclusive House of Lanvin, and she is also a member of the Kiki House of Juicy Couture. Shout out to the House of Juicy Couture, who just snatched the trophy on Legendary Season 3. As a ballroom historian, Noelle's passion and experience in performance art inform her approach to archiving and documenting ballroom culture. In her 2021 interview with the LA Times, Noelle states, I never understood myself in the world until I started studying Femme Queen performance and going back into the history of Black trans women in the world. It's been the key to my biggest awakening. So without further ado, I'll turn it over to you, Noelle.
Hello, everybody. I am Noelle Deleon. I am an interdisciplinary artist, writer, archivist, and dancer. I am 24 years old and I'm from Texas, and I'm going to give a little introduction before I start. Sorry. Can you all see? Wait, can you all hear me?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Okay. So just a little about me. My knowledge and upbringing in the arts has taught me, about the way we express ourselves as Black people. As a child, I was exposed to many forms of art and expression, particularly dance and music. I started singing in church at the age of 5, and I started dancing at the age of 9. These spaces of expression allowed me to discover the most creative parts about myself, and it helped me become who I am today. I studied music, theater, and vocal performance in college before switching my major to social work as I continued to grow in my identity and perspective about the world and my place in it. I was already writing about music and other forms of artistic expression before I joined Ballroom in 2019. So it was easy for me to include this specific piece of history in my work when I started studying the history of Ballroom and Vogue. When I began my transition in 2019, I was searching for a space that could help me grow as a woman and as an artist. My community of Black trans sisters and the history of Black trans lives became that space for me. The archival work that I do is centered around the history and realities of Black trans women in and out of the ballroom community. I specifically made it a goal to focus on the women in our community because I felt like the history and the understanding wasn't there for my generation. When we talk about Black history, we must be vocal about the contributions and presence of Black trans women. When we talk about artistic expression and what it's done for Black lives, it's very important to be intentional about why it is needed and who it was needed for. At a time where Black lives were an immediate afterthought, Ballroom was created as a way to express ourselves without the weight without the weights of the masses. That is why I write about the importance of Black trans lives, Black expression, and Black history, because the knowledge and understanding that we acquire will sustain us. My forthcoming project, Femme, is a docuseries that is currently in the works, which will feature Black trans women in ballroom and their realities in and outside of this space as well. It will be a biography-driven project which will feature the women, including myself, telling their stories of how they have navigated and lived in certain spaces in the world. After the initial release of my project, I want to turn it into a full film. So today I will be presenting to you the history of Femme Queen performance and Vogue in a PowerPoint. So without further ado, 1 second. So the history of Femme Queen performance will be presented to you by none other than myself, Noelle Deleon. So a little bit of the background with my Femme Queen archive. So I started archiving in 2019. I wanted to document the beauty of trans life and our existence. The beauty of trans life and our existence is evolution, lineage, and language. In 2019, I started the journey of my archival work as an ode to the generations of women before me. I wanted to make sure the world knew the beauty, the power, and the history Black trans women carry in everyday life and in the ballroom community and in their career paths. It's always been important to me to document and collect the history of the world and the spaces in it, specifically the existence of Black trans life and all that has blossomed from the history of it. What is Femme Queen performance? Femme Queen performance, also known as Femme Queen Vogue, is a style of dance created and pioneered by Black trans women in the ballroom community. The first generation of Femme Queen performances introduced the style throughout the 1980s. The style of Femme Queen Vogue during this time period was a more feminine and delicate extension of Old Way, which was the original style of Vogue from the early days of ballroom. Old Way Vogue, also known as pop, dip, and spin. Old Way is the first voguing style, which was the foundation for the development of New Way and Vogue film. It's characterized by the formation of lines, symmetry, and precision of the body. Physical forms like martial arts, breakdance, popping, and military styles served as inspiration for Old Way Vogue. Examples of voguers rooted in this style would be Stevie Saint Laurent, Jerome Magnifique, Jamal Milan, Andre Mizrahi, Tim Lanvin, Cesar Valentino, Ira Aphrodite, Dewan Milan, Fuquan Ebony, Kevin Milan, and more. New Wave Vogue is characterized by its precision while creating complex lines, stretching lines, and illusions with the arms, wrists, hands, and the bending of the body. It was inspired and created by performers who showcase innate flexibility and poses inspired by contortionists, gymnastics, and yoga. Examples of voguers rooted in this style would be Willie Ninja, Lance Adonis, Jose Revlon, Jose Extravaganza, Derek Extravaganza, Louise Extravaganza, Stanley Milan, Avance Milan, Javier Ninja, Edwin Revlon, and more. The first look at Femme Queen performance was built around Femme Queen Old Way, which was popularized by individuals like Leah Richards, Sandy Ninja, Bianca Extravaganza, Moldavia LaBeija, with mentions of Octavia Saint Laurent, Danielle Revlon, Melissa Extravaganza, and more before the five elements were introduced in the early 90s. Give me 1 second, sorry. As the category evolved out of the traditional old way style, Letitia Revlon, Alyssa LaPerla, Christina Richards, and others were the next generation of women who pushed Femme Queen performance in a new direction with their distinctive styles, a shift that will result in the creation of Vogue Femme, which is the use of all five elements: catwalk, the duck walk, dips, hand performance, floor performance. The early days of Vogue Femme revolved around the women using one or more of the elements in their performance. By 1990 to 1993, the introduction of the five elements were molded into one performance for Voguers, and more women started to walk the category, pushing the style even further in terms of technique and popularity. Vogue Femme is based on the foundation and technique of Old Way and embodies feminine movement. It's known for the five elements: hand performance, catwalk, duck walk, dips, and floor performance, with spin dips qualifying as a component as well. The incorporation of various dance styles like hip hop, classical, ballet, jazz, and others have been used in the formation of Vogue Femme. Butch Queen Vogue Femme is based on the foundation and technique of Femme Queen Vogue, which is executed by a Butch Queen, which would be considered a gay male, in ballroom using the five elements. Butch Queen Vogue Femme is defined as a Butch Queen voguing like a Femme Queen and was introduced into the ballroom scene in the early 90s. As Vogue Femme and the elements started to evolve, the men began to emulate the Femme Queens in their performance. Eugene Milan, Baby St. Clair, Taifa, Ebony Icon, Shay Shay Icon, Mystery Dior, Albert Revlon, Charles Kahn, Armani Milan, Look Kevin Prodigy, and Kevin Allure are more early examples of Butch Queen Vogue Femme. With the progression of the previous generations of Femme Queen Vogue, the third generation of women made their way in with the influences and technique of the generation before them. Sanaya Ebony, Ashley Icon, Celeste Infinity, Angel Revlon, Sabrina Icon, and Venus Mizrahi and others were part of the first look at the five elements of Vogue and Femme Queen performance. These women and more were the introduction to what Femme Queen performance will look like for generations that came after them. The fourth generation of Femme Queen performance introduced us to the most influential and innovative generation of Voguers in ballroom. Didi Revlon, Diambi Prodigy, Yolanda Jordan, Deja LaPerla, Mika Prodigy, Olora Jordan, Johnny Zion, Tamara Ebony, Amina Prodigy, Mariah Revlon, charisma icons, Stacey Mizrahi and more were the generation of women who changed the structure of the 5 elements and femme queen performance. With the introduction of distinct styles and techniques, Vogue started to be differentiated between soft and cunt and dramatics as Voguers started to experiment with their individual style of Vogue. This was the generation that reinvented femme queen Vogue to the highest degree, and they were a study guide to all the others that came after them in this era. How is femme queen Vogue executed? The 5 elements of Vogue is the catwalk, duck walk, dips, hand performance, and floor performance. The catwalk is an exaggerated walk in the form of focused lines, while the duck walk is an exaggerated bounce in a squat in a focused line. Hand performance is built around creating shapes and illusions with your hands, and floor performance is centered around the stretch poses and movement of the legs and lower body. A dip is a pose that can be either arched or in a flat position on the ground. Who comes from the lineage of femme queen performance? There are 9 generations. The first generation, the second generation, the third, fourth, fifth, 6th, 7th, 8th, and 9th. I'm going to go back so you all can see the names of some of the women from the generations. 1 second. From the first generation, you can see, as I mentioned earlier in the PowerPoint, Leah Richards, Moldavia LaBeija, Sandy Ninja, Melissa Extravaganza, Bianca Extravaganza, Khadija Saint Laurent, Danielle Revlon, and Princess Magnifique. With the first generation, it was rooted in more old weight Vogue, which was a delicate version of old weight, which was executed in the femme queen style. The second generation would be Letitia Revlon, Alyssa LaPerla, Christina Richards, and Brenda Continental. The third generation, Sanaya Ebony, Ashley Icon, Venus Mizrahi, Sabrina Icon, Celeste Infinity, and Angel Revlon. With the fifth generation, we have Mercedes Prodigy, Champagne Icon, Laomi, which is the most the most popular femme queen performance in the world, Roxy Prodigy, Sequoia Prodigy, Dawn Ebony, Erica K. Margella, Kima Ebony, Kelly DMV, Demir Versailles, Tia Jordan Lanvin, and Brenda Revlon. The sixth generation, Tiffany Prodigy, Shadira Prodigy, Katrina Ebony, Lola Ebony, Skittles Khan, Veronica Milan Mugler, Feminine Destruction, Malaysia Ebony, and Vanity Gorgeous Gucci. For the seventh generation, we have Asia West, Jasmine Prodigy, Davina Icon West, Tamara Prodigy, Tamisha Ebony, Yanni Ebony, Paris Mizrahi, LaDonna Khan, Barbie Revlon Machiavelli, Kyra Ebony Machiavelli, Blossom Revlon, Genovia Garcon Lanvin, and Melina Ebony. For the eighth generation, we have Tutu Khan West, Quana Ebony Balenciaga, Jada Revlon Machiavelli, Pandora West, Kamaya Ebony Balenciaga, Rachel Garcon, Allison Prodigy, Tati Mugler, Lucille Margella, Daphne Revlon, Quanice Prodigy, Octavia Gorgeous Gucci, London Balenciaga, Milan 007, and Kyra Mizrahi. For the ninth generation, which is the current generation, we have Cache West, J-Line Moscow, Layla Balmain, Jemiah Balmain 007, Kendra Revlon West, Didi Gorgeous Gucci, Cheyenne Escada, Kylie Balenciaga, Barbie Balenciaga, Calypso Balmain, Medusa Balenciaga, Shoni Delcor, Princess Machiavelli 007, Samantha Demir Versailles, Lala Demir Versailles, Nikhil Saint Laurent, Noelle Lanvin, and Omi 007. I know these are a lot of names, but I just wanted to make sure everybody knew who came from each generation. So sorry if I dragged it on.
Don't apologize, because people need to know these names. And I'm gonna just chime in real quick. I feel like we see a lot of these femme queens performing and going viral online, and people will repost, but they won't credit them. And it's so important in Black trans history and ballroom history for everyone to know their names. So it is more than fine that everyone gets this knowledge and speaks these women's names, because their innovations and their creativity and artistry are the reason why you're able to grow, and so many folks in the world, right, are able to respect and enjoy ballroom. So we're grateful, Noelle. We're grateful.
Thank you. Why is Femme Queen performance important? It's important because these women were blessed with the gift of expression. I believe the art of Vogue, specifically Femme Queen performance, is a radical art and that it provides us with liberation from the standards and expectations of this world. The reality is that there are laws and limitations put in place to stop the progression and sustainability of life for trans women. We are positioned as outsiders in this world. So for us to actively fight against the structural and systematic oppression in this world, coming to these ballroom spaces and being on the floor is an act of resistance against that oppression. It's weaponized femininity. It's the act of expressing your existence in the most liberated and disciplined way. Radical expression has been a constant tool that Black people continue to utilize in this world due to the operations of an anti-Black, racist, transphobic, homophobic, and misogynistic world that was designed to strip us of our existence. Black women, specifically Black women of trans experience, are amongst the most vulnerable and marginalized community in this world. And coming to these spaces dedicated to us is a counterattack against the struggles of this world. These women use their bodies to perform, to connect with the music, and to unleash these stories. Their style of dance is studied and used by countless individuals around the world. These women went on the floor. Sorry. Oh, I'm sorry. Give me 1 second. Sorry. These women went on the floor for years and gave the world so many moments, and I feel as though those moments aren't analyzed and celebrated as they should be, which is why the work that I do is to preserve and showcase the history. That is why Femme Queen performance is so important, because it's a redistribution of our individualistic power in this world, especially in this space that was created for us and by us. Thank you. And that concludes my PowerPoint for today. So now I'm going to showcase the recent article I did with Dem Magazine highlighting specific Femme Queen performances in Ballroom for Black History Month. So Vogue is Everywhere, introduced by early masters like Paris Dupree, Willie Ninja, and Leah Richards, and then broadcast to the world through works like Paris is Burning, Vogue, Vogue, Vogue Evolution, Kiki, the movie Kiki, Pose, and Legendary. The art form is more, sorry, give me 1 second. As Vogue has become increasingly popular in mainstream culture, a growing community of ballroom historians have taken the challenge As Vogue has become increasingly popular in mainstream culture, a growing community of ballroom historians have taken the challenge of making sure its history and the community who birthed it remains front and center. One of those ballroom figures is Houston-born archivist Noelle Deleon. For Deleon, a performer in her own right, Vogue is more than just a form of dance. It's what she calls weaponized femininity. Vogue is how we resist the weight of an anti-Black and transphobic world. She tells me, when we're on the floor, we are weaponizing our bodies against those who fail or resist to see our humanity as Black trans people. I feel as though a lot of times we don't acknowledge the reality of being trans in this world. We stay in the fantasy. With my archive, I want to honor the beauty and the reality of it all. Beyond simply taking the stock of history, Deleon seeks to share it. An effort, she says, is essential, especially as Ballroom continues to demand more widespread appeal. She curates the Femme Queen Friday, which is a series I have been doing with a Black trans organization since 2020 through social media, which I share dozens of archival videos with captions explaining the context and the history and significance of the clip. Sorry, give me 1 second. As a dancer, I'm always going to uplift performances, whether they come from the women or the men. But I think the women are more crucial because they're the origin. The women are the pinnacle, the past, present, and future of ballroom. One second. What I'm doing is preserving the ancestry, the lineage. We have to know where we come from. We have to know the evolution of our community. Without the history, how can we know progress? How can we imagine a new space? With these questions in mind, I was asked to display 7 Femme Queen performances throughout history. So here we have Christina Richards, sorry, we have Christina Richards, and she hails from the 2nd generation of Femme Queen performance, where old wave was transitioning into Vogue Femme. So a little background about my mother, Christina. She is also known as Icon Christina Vega, also known as Icon Christina Richards, the ballerina. She is Black history personified. Born in, born in New York, Christina started walking balls during the late 80s, trained by her mother, which I mentioned before, Icon Leah Richards, the mother of Vogue. Christina changed ballroom forever by combining old wave, the original Vogue style, characterized by magazine poses, dips, and classical spins, with the 5 elements of Vogue Femme. In the clip above, pay attention, as you can see, Christina's uniquely pointed catwalk, old way poses, and floor performance. In 2005, Christina adopted the role of mother of the House of Tsunami, walking and winning throughout the next couple of years. She was deemed an icon not long after. Though Christina retired from ballroom in 2020, her distinct styles, suited to her and her alone, will forever be felt in the community. So the next clip we have icon Sanaya Ebony, Alaya. One second. Sorry, I'm just waiting for it to load. So a little bit about Sanaya. Icon Sanaya Alaya got the nickname the mother of sex through her infectious catwalk and charismatic style of Vogue. Brought up by the icon Moldavia LaBeija in the House of Ebony, Sanaya started walking balls in the early 90s, going on to rule multiple categories, including Femme Queen Sex Siren, Femme Queen Face, and Femme Queen Body. In the above clip, You can see Sanaya effortlessly captivating the crowd by just catwalking around the room. In 1999, Sanaya became Mother Ebony and birthed four of the most iconic Femme Queen performers in Ballroom, solidifying her status as not only a historic voguer, but also an essential figure in the worldwide ballroom community. Today, she still continues to grace the scene through her performances and advocacy work. The next, the next Femme Queen performer I'm going to showcase is Misha Forbes, aka Icon Mika Alpha Omega. And just to clarify, can you all see the clips I'm showing? Okay. So a little background about Misha. She's also known as Icon Mika Alpha Omega. After coming on the scene in 1996, Mika's reign in Femme Queen performance began in 2000. As a formerly trained dancer, she earned the name The Malicious Mika through her dramatic and precise style of performances. In this clip above, we can find her employing all the 5 elements with a single performance to get her tens. Like her mother, Mika has made her mark on Ballroom beyond the runway. In 2002, after departing from the House of Ebony, she came out as the founding mother of the House of Prodigy. 2 years later, Mika walked as Catwoman at the POCC ball and won $1,000 for her grand prize. In 2016, she was deemed an icon, and in 2022, she came out as the Queen Mother of the House of Alpha Omega. In the next clip, we have icon Deja La Perla. So a little bit about Deja, also known as Natalie Coleman. Deja La Perla emerged as one of the most prolific voguers of her time during the Blue Era Ballroom, the period between 1998 and 2004 when we saw the innovation of elemental vogue. Formerly trained in multiple styles of dance, Deja established herself as a, in ballroom as a member of the House of Mizrahi, where she became the first ballroom performer to win $1,000 for grand prize. Deja is known for her complex musicality of her vogue, her intricate hand performance, and soft and the sensual and intentionally feminine form inspired by Alyssa La Perla, Christina Richards, and Abra Revlon. She developed a new form of femme queen vogue. Each of these features was displayed in this clip above. Deja solidified her ballroom legacy as Mother Evisu, Escada, and La Perla, reaching legendary status in 2005 and becoming an icon in 2016. In that year, not only did she rejoin the House of Mizrahi, but she also won her fourth $1,000 grand prize in New York at the same venue where she won her first $1,000 prize. Though Deja is no longer with us, her contributions to the world of dance and Vogue will never be forgotten. The next Femme Queen performance I'm going to display to you all is icon Neambi Prodigy. 1 second. Give me 1 second. So a little bit about Neambi. Also known as Neambi Stanley, Neambi Prodigy is revered in ballroom for elevating the art of dips. Her most notable contribution is her perfection of the Macaella dip, which is a sudden descent to the floor at the height of a crashing beat. Neambi, or also known as the mistress of the Macaella, made her name walking balls and feeling in New York, molding her performance around inspiration from Sanaya Ebony and Ashley Icon. In this clip, you can see Neambi showcasing an intricate breakdown, which is a combination of moves to the beat and executing her iconic Macaella. She became an icon in 2016 and in many ways is a blueprint for generations of vocals today. The last the last performance is none other than Laomi. Give me 1 second, sorry. So a little background about Laomi. Laomi Maldonado, also known as Icon Laomi, who just came out as a Mugler at the Latex Ball this past Saturday, is currently one of the most well-known vocalists and ballroom figures in the world. Laomi, who cites Alora Jordan and Yolanda Jordan as her principal influences, she began walking balls in the early 2000s. Under the House of Mizrahi, under the House of Mizrahi, Laomi had no difficulties making herself as a household name in Femme Queen performance. Her creation of the 360 dip, along with her signature dramatics and athletic mix of acrobatics and poise, helped her earn her nickname, the Wonder Woman of Vogue. After dominating her category for years, Laomi was deemed a legend in 2010. Laomi's success as a dancer has created many opportunities in and outside of the ballroom scene, including her appearance on ABC's America's Best Dance Crew and HBO's Legendary. In 2016, Laomi further crystallized her ballroom legacy by founding the House of Amazon, She was deemed an icon that following year. Leoma's impact as a Vogue is essential because she took Femme Queen dramatics and Femme Queen performance and showcased it to the world. So for this next display, I'm going to show a little bit of the video I made about Femme Queen performance. So here we have icon Leah Richards in 1992 displaying Femme Queen Over. And here we have icon Noelle displaying another version of Femme Queen Over in 1992. And here we have icon Sanaya Lai in 1995. And this was the era where Vogue was transitioning into Vogue film with the 5 elements. And as you can see, there are more elements than the clips before this. here we have icon Alyssa Ebony in 1996. And that concludes my presentation for today, you all.
Thank you so much, Noelle. I
Thank
feel like I can speak for other people in the room where my heart is like, ooh, overwhelmed with so much rich knowledge. Like I had no idea there were 9 generations. I had no idea about the very precise execution and evolution of these dance forms. And I see some of my favorites. So it was just really inspiring to see. And thank you for doing this work. Thank you for preserving the history of your community and Black trans women and all that they've contributed. We have a lot of questions that are starting to come in. And so I'm going to read a few to you and let me know what you think, or just give us your feedback.
Okay.
Someone asked, as with many elements of Black music, art, and culture, we see the ways in which appropriation and commodification threaten how accurate history is and the genesis of these important contributions to society. What are some of the best ways, in your opinion, for allies to learn more about supporting and amplifying, and most importantly, protecting the history of Black femme in ballroom? So the main question is, what are the ways, in your opinion, that allies can learn more about supporting and amplifying and protecting the history of Black femme in ballroom?
So, first and foremost, when it comes to being an ally, I do believe that you really have to be intentional about what you are seeking out and what you are seeking to be a part of. What I did when I wanted to learn about ballroom and the history that's attached to it, I went back to the source. I went back as early as I could. I, reached out and asked people. I, did my homework. I researched, for hours at a time, for nights at a time. I've spent, countless hours figuring out how I can learn and, analyze things. So what I would suggest is to go back to the source. Reach out to people that you know that are a part of ballroom. And if you're going to be in ballroom spaces, it's important to know that you have to respect the culture attached to it and respect the history and people attached to it as well.
Thank you for giving that feedback. And myself, as a Black cis woman, I personally am not a fan of the term ally, because when I look at you as my community, as a Black woman, as Black people, right? That's my perspective. And in supporting these different initiatives, I personally feel a way, I'm adding my own answer to that question. And Noelle being transparent, right, about the reality of the lives of Black trans women in the world, start a GoFundMe campaign, right? Literally fund initiatives and movements. You can give money to houses. You can give money to historians like Noelle. There's so many, I see on a regular basis, so many trans folks needing support in our communities online, circulating that. So for me, I'm going to say, open up your purse, donate to the real organizations that matter, make sure it's going directly to Black trans organizations, and continue to do your homework, because Noelle is being, right, a leader and an archivist preserving this history, but it's also up to us to do the work, to do the research. It's there. And like Noelle said, if we are going to enter these spaces of ballroom communities, you absolutely have to respect the etiquette and the culture that's happening in those spaces. Our next question that we have is, how do you think the elements of Vogue, you talked about show up more in Femme Queens? Are there some more in common to show in Femme Queen compared to other elements? So they're asking what elements are really dominated and elevated by Femme Queen performers?
That's honestly a good question, because I would say all of them, but honestly, I would say hand performance and definitely the catwalk and dips. would be the most that have been innovated by Femme Queens. Because as a Femme Queen performance, the goal is to, you know, have great hands, to have fluid hand performance. That was one of the main components of Old Way, whether it came from a man or a woman. But as a Femme Queen, having fluid and, you know, intricate hands was the goal to have. So I would say hand performance, dips, and the catwalk is what has been most innovated and reinvented by Femme Queens.
That's a good answer. I personally had the honor to take a course with folks from the House of Ninja, and I'm a fan of Old Way. Yeah. And I'm gonna tell you something, by the end of that performance, my shoulders were aching. That first, so like my shoulders were aching and my body, there were certain muscles that I was activating that I don't use regularly. And so in thinking about you as a dancer, as a performer in Vogue, like, can you give us a little bit of background of all of the things that you put your body through in these art forms? Like, how do you heal your body, or what is that like when you're learning new moves and ready for a ball? Like, what does that to feel like?
Well, so for me, so I like my aunt, like when I was 5. Was I 5? Yes. Okay. So like maybe 2005, 2006, my aunt was like teaching. My aunt like was a praise dancer like in church. So I would see her dance and I would be like, I want to do this. And then she, you know, taught me a couple moves. And then me and my family, we moved to the south side of Houston, and I joined this group, and we would praise dance, like dancing in church, and then we would do hip hop and you know, gospel as well. So that was like the first step into like training my body and, you know, like getting like muscle memory and stuff like that. And I stopped dancing for a really long time, but ballroom kind of pushed me back into doing it, right? Um, so what I do is I try to get as much rest as possible. I'm still learning like the whole art of like being a disciplined dancer, and just disciplining your body to be able to sustain all of that, you know, constant movement and the rigorous, you know, activity that we do as Voguers. Is really like a lot, honestly. So you really have to be like disciplined and structured as a Voguer, because there are so many components that come to doing all of these elements, and, you know, constantly being on the floor. Like your body is at is in constant motion at all times. So
Yeah. For those of you who want to stay connected and follow Noelle on Instagram and Twitter, please follow Noelle at Noelle Archives. Noelle posts a ton of information, but I love seeing Noelle perform myself. So you may get a glimpse in the next few weeks and few months of Noelle, right, sharing her experiences growing in ballroom as well. For those folks who are not familiar with Black art forms and how our community gets down, I see that there's historically a pattern of the role that Black community plays in watching, observing performance, whether it's call and response. And there's so many elements spiritually that happen in these performance spaces. For those who are not familiar, can you tell us a little bit more about the role of community and specifically the role that the MC plays in ballroom spaces?
So the role that the community plays is that when you're walking a ball, when you hear the music is a component, right? But the MC, the commentator, elevates the music. It allows you to connect to a different sound pattern, so to say, like through that MC's voice. And the role that community plays is that they elevate the need to let it out. They elevate the need to, you know, go hard on the floor. They elevate the need to do well on the floor. Without like the crowd clapping or without like crowd participation, it's honestly kind of boring performance sometimes, really. So the community and definitely like the commentator and the MC, they drive the ball, they drive the performance. You know, you can be able to dance, but if you don't have that music and that support, it's sometimes it's pointless.
Yeah, and it also seems like from my observation, the MC has a lot of spiritual power where they're
Right.
projecting their energy, keeping
Right.
everybody in sync, keeping the energy in the places where it needs to go.
Mhm.
And even at times it seems, and tell me if I'm wrong, if someone's not given what they're supposed to on the floor, it seems like MCs will also consult with community in real time, like, this is it or this ain't it. And so I think it's so important, all the elements of community that go into ballroom. You got 3 more questions and I'm going to answer them in the order that they were asked. Thank you everybody for your patience with the questions. An anonymous attendee asks you, I think you mentioned a little about some Voguers really trailblazing their new way, the new way versus the old way. Can you tell us a little bit about this? What is a significant difference from new way to old way? And so you can tell us about a specific element or types of performance.
So with old way, you can see the body is in a more structured line in a how can I describe it? It's in a fixed pose. It's in a line. But with new way, the body is more. It's bent. The body is folded. The body is it. How can I describe it? Okay, so if you were to see like someone performing old way, they could be like flat on the ground. But with new way, the body would be positioned in multiple angles, like on the ground, off the ground. So the like the clear difference is the stretch, the folding, the bending of the body.
And it seems like also in new way, there's a lot more fluidity in the
Right,
body.
right.
People are bringing
Yeah.
dramatics maybe that folks in old way weren't bringing before. Like
Mhm.
from what I've studied in old way, I see a lot of sharp, rigid lines and
Right.
the
Yeah,
intention.
right. Like it's very fixed, but with new way, it's really the opposite actually.
That's it. Fixed, I think, is the amazing way to describe it. So the next question we have, and I'm getting to the other ones.
Okay.
Some Someone says, Eva says, Noelle, thank you so much for this wonderful collection of stories and contributions from Black trans women in the broader fashion, music, and dance culture. I'm really curious to hear more about your own journey as a voguer and whether you think your own style as voguing is an embodied archive, in addition to the archival work that you've shared with us here. Do you think your style of voguing is an embodied archive? That's the first question from her. And then there's a second.
Wow, that's thank you.
Eva.
Eva, that's actually a beautiful question, and it's funny that you mentioned that because I do my own style is an ode to the women that have influenced me. Actually, that's a really emotional question, actually. But to answer, let me go back and look at it so I can answer it thoroughly. Okay. So my own journey. So I started transitioning in 2019, and that was when I started getting into ballroom like in 2018, but 2019 was the when I really wanted. I made it a goal to pay more attention to it, to get more knowledge about it. So when I started my transition, I was already like posting clips and dissecting certain individuals in that performance, and I I wanted to find something that could bring me closer to my identity, to a space to where I could release all of that, you know. So I walked my first ball. I joined the Kiki House of Mulan in 2020, in February 2020, and then I walked my first ball in September 2020. Um, and then from there, I just kept, walking. I kept practicing. I kept, learning as much as I could. I, was voguing with different people. And then last year, July 2021, there was this ball called the West Ball, and that was a ball I had been preparing for since I started my training. So I told myself, I was like, girl, you need to kill it. Like, you need to do good. Like, this needs to be your moment. So I went that weekend, and they didn't get to my category the first night, but there was an aftermath the night after. So I was like, okay, like, you prepare for this, you have to do well. So I went there, and like, excuse my language, like I vogued my ass off. Like I did what I needed to do because I knew the work that I was doing. I couldn't just be doing that work. I had to equally do well on the floor as well. So I made it to last battle, and after that moment, like people knew. Not only did people know me as an archivist, like Noelle the archive, people knew me as a voguer as well. They knew that I was good. Um, so I made a moment, and I think I'll be able to share clips from that night. But yeah, like that was last year was the moment that I knew that I was well on my way, because the type of person I am, sometimes I like really doubt myself and my abilities. So I really cherish those moments when I'm doing well and when I'm getting recognition or my flowers. So, and my journey, is still being written. It's still, on its way. So yeah, but definitely like my Vogue is an embodiment of the 90s era of Vogue and the women I love to watch.
Thank you. We got 3 more questions. I said that before, but we're going to get through it. The second part of that question was, you answered part of it about your own style.
Mm-hmm.
Do you feel that femme queen ancestors show up in your voguing?
Absolutely. Absolutely. They are, I do believe that they, and this might sound like a little odd to say, I do believe they talk to me like when I vogue. Like they guide me. Like one thing that one of my friends said to me last year after I got to last battle, he was like the femme queens control the beat. Like we control we navigate the beat. And I feel as though like my favorite girls, like they in a way have guided me and showed me what to do when I'm on the floor. So it's really important for me to be on the floor and to do well, because I feel like when I'm doing well, that's an ode to them. That's a thank you to them for paving the way for me.
Thank you. So we have 2 more questions. This question is from Berta. They said, fantastic work, congratulations. Are there any actual academies to learn the technique, or is an actual dance technique by particular dancers, like the Scratch Academy, for instance? They're speaking about an academy that's specific to different art forms. Is there a place that you can go?
Like an academy that is dedicated to teaching Vogue?
Yes.
To my knowledge, no, there's not an academy to teaching Vogue. But there are Voguers around the world who are dedicated to teaching it to the masses and like to people in different areas around the world. But that's actually a great question, because I like part of the work that I want to do is I want to like down the line, I want there to be a school that is dedicated to the history of ballroom, specifically Vogue and dance, because it's such an important piece of history, and it's such an important piece of expression that has been utilized by so many people. So that was actually a great question.
And shout out to the dreams. Shout out to you manifesting all of them. We have 1 more question here, and they ask, does competition continue to be central to ballroom as it is to ball culture? I came in contact with in the late 1980s. Has the role and function of the competition element changed over time?
It's definitely changed, because now there are more opportunities to win a lot more money than it was back then. So there's a much dire need to be great on the floor, because you're competing for much more money. You're competing in a way that allows you access to much more things. So the competition is definitely more steep. There are thousands of people in ballroom now. So the competition is, heavy.
And being that ballroom has grown so much over the years, do you feel like the categories have expanded where people have more opportunities?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Absolutely. I remember I went to a conference this past December. It was a House Lives Matter conference. And one of the, because ballroom and the queer community is advancing in the way we show up and in the way we, how can I say this? In the way we have developed gender and expression, there are more opportunities for like gender non-conforming individuals to have a place in ballroom and to feel validated and seen on the floor. And that was one of the topics that we discussed at the conference. And there are more, definitely like more opportunities now for people of gender non-conforming experience to be seen and to be a part of ballroom that don't really fit into one category, you know. So
That's beautiful. I just honestly, from the bottom of my heart, Noelle, want to thank you for doing the work that you do, because the reality is, and you've said it before multiple times in multiple spaces, if you and we and as individuals in our cultures are not documenting our lives, people are going to say we weren't here, people are going to say you didn't exist, and people are going to claim the art forms that you're preserving right now as their own. And so everyone who's joining us today, I urge you to follow Noelle. I urge you to engage with her materials. I urge you to support Black trans women. And that can be from the smallest things to the biggest things. Like, even if you're whether you're in a boardroom, a classroom, wherever you are, and if you have a position of leadership, you have an opportunity to make things more accessible and equitable to Black trans folks, whether that's inviting groups of Black trans people in to do their own work and you getting the hell out the way, or even if it means donating, right, to different initiatives and different projects that Black trans women across the world are doing. And so, Noelle, this is not the last time we're going to see you, and everyone continue to tap in and connect with Noelle. I'm so grateful for you. I love the work that you do. I can't wait to continue to support you as you grow in Ballroom. And if anyone doesn't have anything else to ask or share, I would love to just turn it over to Noelle for any closing remarks. But thank you. I really love you and I really admire
I love
you.
you too, my love. First, I want to say I always like get nervous, you know, like talking about this and like displaying, you know, my work and things like that, because it's very, you know, true to me. It's very dear to my heart. So forgive me if like I, you know, was nervous and, you know, like, you know, stuttering over words and um, like throughout the presentation. But I just want to say thank you for everyone who, you know, made this event happen. I want to say thank you to you, Camille, for just seeing me and seeing my work and believing in me and supporting me. And to just everyone who attended, thank you.
Thank you. And everyone in the chat saying you're amazing. They learned so much from you. You're perfect. We got to give each other more space and grace as humans. And I'm grateful that this was a really like authentic, calm conversation. Everything doesn't have to be uppity, especially when you're leading the conversation about the work that you do. So thank you, everyone. Follow Noelle on Instagram and on Twitter, and make sure you stay in touch with her because she will continue to release amazing projects. Thank you so much again, the Hemispheric Institute, and thank you, Andrew Mellon Foundation, for funding this work. And thank you, Noelle.
Thank you all.
Have a good one, everyone. Bye.